This is the farm. This is the garage. The house is down there. Look at the size of these pine trees we've planted. The view from the farmhouse to the lake, they put in tennis courts up here in front, which is quite a bit different. And of course the trees are so high you can hardly see the lake, but it's there. The house itself is pretty much the same. It's painted a little bit darker color, but it still looks almost like it did when we used to come up here. This is the view from the house itself. It hasn't changed too much since that time. Grass is all nicely mowed. Looks just like a golf course down there. Right, you can see the pine trees, how tall they are. I guess we put those in about 53 or 54, maybe 55. These trees, they were about 4 inches high. No, it's a regular pine forest. Lynn was married in just about this spot, right here. I can remember when I was young, we used to run up this hill full tilt. I can barely walk up today. Sally's kind of sad. Now the beach, it's a little more overgrown than it used to be. It used to be kind of wide open, but the lake is right beyond those trees. This is the old beach. The dock and float are gone. But if you look over here to the right, Easter Island is still Easter Island. The lily pads are still in there. The wild rice. At the point, there are cottages built in there now. There never used to be anything there. And all those trees over there we planted too. There are houses along this side of the beach now and the other side of the bathing beach, and each one has its own dock. This is one of the houses built right above the beach, right above where the dock used to be. And if you look down at the far end of the lake, you'll see some more docks. There's more cottages and houses down there that weren't there before. It's built up where the big pine tree was that we used to have the tire swing on. The old road that Charlie built to go across to Easter Island, but they've kind of let it grow over, and you can't get across the island now. So I think the island is being preserved. There's nothing on it, no houses. So it's just kind of going wild, which is good.
Maybe there's still some Easter eggs lying there, the golden egg.
You'd almost think this was a golf course and a golf course clubhouse rather than a private residence.
Well, he's halfway up the hill. Do you think he's going to make it? 30 years later, he's still going. Three-quarters of the way up and still going. It's hard to think we were here almost 30, oh yes, over 35 years ago, before we were married. That house wasn't even there. Anyway, still going. He's making it. He's there. And I'm halfway there. And Mother and Daddy's bedroom. Go up the house this way.
This is where the old farmhouse used to stand, and they built a volleyball court here. It's a nice court. And if you look through the trees there, which were right in front of the farmhouse, you'll see they've got a satellite antenna dish. So they get about 125 channels of television up here now. This is where Charlie's garden used to be. It's all now nice, freshly mowed grass. They don't seem to grow much up here, except grass and trees. Sally doesn't know what to do other than walk around. The swing set used to be there, and the old factory for Eleanor's little business was back there. That's gone. That's been moved down to Horse Creek, and it's now the Horse Creek store. To be the original road in, we stopped using that years ago, and now even the gravel's gone. The thing that's hardest to believe is that when Charlie came up here in about 1951, the only trees in the entire place were this one little pine tree, it was a little pine tree then, and these two ash trees. One ash there and the other ash over there. Everything else was planted by Charlie and us. Even these blue spruce are gotten huge. Found something over there. We'll go there and see what it is. Found the old Scout. It's still here, ready to plow the snow. Stuck back in a little shed here. I don't know how old that thing is, but it must be 20, 25 years old. And there's the old Scout trailer that all the kids used to ride around on. Still here. Back through the woods we helped plant. See how tall the pines have gotten.
This is just about too much for me, Jim. I think it's time to go home. Wherever that is, I don't know.
Every one of those trees was planted by hand. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. These trees were so thick, a few years ago you couldn't walk through here. Now as they've gotten bigger and the sun has been out of here, the weeds have gone down, and you can walk almost anywhere through here. They're still planted though in nice neat rows. I'm going to leave a card to note saying we were here. The people who own it now aren't here. Charlie said we should drop in and see them, but they weren't here, so Sally's going to leave a note. Kind of makes you sad to come back here. When you figure we used to drive up here every weekend when we lived in Minneapolis. And then when we moved to Chicago, we used to fly up almost every weekend. Spent every Thanksgiving and Christmas here for about 10 or 15 years. Eleanor always wanted to build a swimming pool here off the master bedroom, and it has yet to be built. And with the lake down below, there really isn't a reason for one. I don't know if you should shoot through people's windows when they're not home without their permission, but we'll do it anyway. The Eleanor's curtains are still here. Looks almost identical inside to what it used to look like. To sit up here in the patio and have a Coke or a drink after the swim and sit around and talk and argue and take in the view of the lake. Sometimes watch the thunderstorms build up in the horizon. We used to ski down this hill. One year we had a ski lift. In fact, I went down this in a toboggan once, standing up on the toboggan like a surfboard, fell off and almost broke my neck. It's amazing we lived through it. The bird feeder is still here, but there's no feed in it, so there aren't any birds.
No grape jelly, no oranges.
But it's really been very well kept up.
Oh,
What is it?
I don't know if that was Mother's or not.
What is it?
A little boy, little black boy, you know, and the little...
In Eleanor's garden. I can remember that.
She had a little girl from Mexico, or lady with her, which she has in
One more last panoramic view before we
for the time being.
head back. Sally left a note and said if they wanted to sell, let us know.
Driving to a bigger town. The neon signs tell me where I can find a room. I take a hot shower and I hit the bed. And in my dreams, I still can see the world.
has changed so much, I'm lost. I haven't got the slightest idea where I am. Nothing looks the same.
Want to go by the Pioneer Press?
Yeah, but it's still there.
And if I can find the darn place, I've never been so confused in my life. I have no idea what's going on. Well, here's the First National Bank building. Can't miss that. It's about the same, exactly the same spot. Hubert H. White. Dad used to buy all his clothes there. At least he would have liked to. And here's the St. Paul Pioneer Press and Dispatch. I never would have found it or recognized it. The cathedral is still a dominant landmark. Still stands at Selby and Summit, at the top of the hill. But St. Paul's only subway, the Selby Tunnel, is now gone. It's the Minnesota State Capitol in St. Paul. There used to be a lot of old buildings around here, and they tore them down. They made the Capitol coach park out of it. The line of every city in America, the skyline of St. Paul is really changing. It used to be the First National Bank building there. It used to be the tallest building in town. Now it doesn't really stand out at all. It's still there. This is Summit Avenue. The houses haven't changed very much. They're still very well kept. St. Paul's in the Hill, where Mother and Dad were confirmed, and Bob and I were confirmed. Went to church there for many years. This is our house in 1981 Berkeley. We lived here from about 1935 through 1937. Bob and I went to Groveland Park School here. I remember Dad told me our landlord was a Simon Legree, so I put 2 nails under his front tires and gave him 2 flat tires. Later on, I went to work for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, and it turned out Simon Legree was my boss. He got a kick out of it when I told him about the flats. This is our house at 1004 Lincoln. We only lived here 1 year, so we really don't remember the neighborhood. Bob and I were just little kids. But I remember there was a woman down the street that had an electric car, and we'd play ball in the streets, and she'd come by and we'd never hear it, and she'd almost run over us. Kind of like something out of Arsenic and Old Lace. But we had a lot of happy memories from this house and going to Linwood School. It was a good neighborhood.
Now, how many years?
This is the house at 1500 Ashland. Doesn't look like it's been painted since we lived in it. Probably hasn't. Cyclone fence wasn't there when we lived in it, but I don't remember those big bushes, and we had a screen porch, which is all gone. Next door on that side was a Maddox's house. And this is Sammy and Betty Winterberg's house. Lived next door. It was actually Grandpa Ivy. It was Grandpa Ivy's house. This is Louis Hauser's house. Looks just about the same. Gene Hoyer used to live there.
Jim, I never heard of any of them.
Potassik's house, Shirley Potassic lived there. Johnny Rildaffer's house. All the Rildaffers are dead. Mother and father, Johnny and his brother David. I don't know, they had some kind of inherited family disease. Some of the people that lived in this house, but they had 2 daughters. And I can remember one day that Bob and some of his friends depantsed the daughters and threw their clothes up in that birch tree. Then we all danced around and said, I see London, I see France, I see someone's under. Up on North Snelling Avenue was Hamlin University, our old alma mater. Mother and Dad went here. So did I. Campus hasn't really changed that much. I don't know what this building is, but you can see the tower of Old Main reflected in the window. Main at Hamlin, the administration building, at least it was when I went here. Mother went to this school, Dad went to this school, my Aunt Jenny went to this school, and Carrie, my daughter, graduated from here. This is the new library building at Hamlin. That wasn't here when I was here. I don't even think it was here when Carrie was here. Residence for Men, this is where I stayed when I first came here for my freshman year. After that I moved into a fraternity house. This is an old fraternity house. I think they must have gotten so rowdy they finally closed it down because now it's the Hamlin University Office of Admission. It's good riddance to bad rubbish, I guess. That's the Manor House, the dormitory where Mother stayed. And about 40 years later, Carrie stayed. This is 1619 Palace. This is the first house that Sally and I lived in after we were married. We had an apartment up on the 2nd floor. This is Saunders Avenue in St. Paul. And right there at the corner apartment, 2058, is where Carrie was born. The second apartment we had in St. Paul. We lived here from 1952 through 1953. This is the house at 7234 Oliver Avenue, where Betsy was born. When we lived here, the street was mud and there weren't any trees. All these trees have grown up in the last 30 years. Pretty much the same as it did then. One tree is missing in the front yard because they put an extra wide driveway in. But every other tree in this property I planted. Backyard. And if you want to look at the size of those pine trees, they used to be 1 foot tall when we put them in. This tree I dug up on a vacant lot in St. Paul. It in here and almost died, so I had to cut every leaf in half to make it grow. And now look how tall it is. This is Pearl Lake Park. We used to live right behind that house in the foreground. This is where Molly and Sarah were both born, this area. And Carrie and Betsy first went to school here at Page School. This was our house at 5148 Laverne in Minneapolis. It was always a nice, quiet street. Nice place for kids to grow up. We lived here about 3 years between Richfield and Chicago. And this was a view of Pearl Lake Park from our house. We were right across the street and the girls used to go down there and play. And once they were attacked by a police dog down there. This will be a big surprise to Carrie and Betsy. And this corner used to be Page School. That's where Betsy started kindergarten and Carrie went up there through, I think, the 1st or 2nd grade. And Sally went there from 1st through about the 6th grade, and the school's been torn down and this housing development has been put in there. Directly across the creek from our Laverne house at 3rd Avenue and Minnehaha Parkway was the house that Sally grew up as a little girl. You can hardly see it behind the trees.
That was my room right up there.
Sally's pointing to where her room was, where the ladder is. They always had that ladder there in case she wanted to elope. They wanted to get rid of her as quick as they could. This is a little bridge across Minnehaha Creek where Sally used to live, right below there. The creek in the park below Sally's house. And right across up there beyond those hills is where we lived on Laverne. So Carrie and Betsy grew up within 2 blocks of where their mother grew up. This is the house Sally lived in when she went to St. Mary's in Faribault. Yeah.
I only lived here 2 years. I lived here from when I was 13 to 15.
It's on Lake Harriet Boulevard in Minneapolis, and it's right overlooking the lake. House, you never could really see it through the trees, but it's right below there. This is Lake Harriet itself. Over there in the distance, you can see the Lake Harriet Yacht Club. Sally's brothers, Harry and Charles, used to have their own sailboats, and we used to go sailing here all the time in the summertime. In the wintertime, we used to go ice boating. This is the house on DuPont that Sally lived in when I met her. We had a big yard. And we were married when she lived in this house, and we had a reception for our wedding here. It was designed by Sally's grandmother when her grandfather was president of Pillsbury, but the house has really gone down, and whoever's ever living there now isn't taking care of it all. The fountain in the Rose Gardens by Lake Harriet, which is right across the street from Sally's grandmother's house. Look down here is all the roses, and in the background you can see the lake itself. me to hurry up and shoot pictures so she can go on and see the rest of her youth. Downtown Minneapolis has really grown up in the last few years. When I used to work here, the tallest building in town was a Fauché Tower. It went up to 28 stories. Now those buildings over on the left go up to 60 and 65 stories. So the town has really grown up. It's very easy to get lost around here now. This is Faribault, Minnesota, where Sally used to go to school. Where your old boyfriends were? Huh? Sally hasn't been here for at least, maybe 20 years. The main building she's going in now was the classroom building and the dormitory building. Go inside. Sally says it's almost exactly the same. She wants to see her old room, so we'll head down the hall and go upstairs. On the way, here's a St. Mary's Code of Honor. I don't know if the girls obeyed it or not. This is Sally's room.
Can't even hear it running. We got the award for neatness. That's about enough.
Strange thing, there wasn't a single person on campus while we were here. We could have walked in, walked off with the whole place. The highest point in Chicago is the Sears Tower. In New York, it's the World Trade Center, and in Tokyo, it's the Sunshine Building. Here in Santa Barbara, the highest point is La Cumbre Peak, where I'm standing right now. It's 3,985 feet. To the south of the peak is the Pacific Ocean in the city of Santa Barbara. From Montecito to Santa Barbara itself, to Hope Ranch, to Goleta. The city is a long, narrow city, but it's not very wide. As you move down below, you can see downtown Santa Barbara and the harbor itself. To the west, the mountain in the distance is Ronald Reagan's mountain. He and Nancy like to sit up there and play King of the Hill. What's really odd about it is he lives on that mountain, and on top of this mountain right here lives Jane Fonda. Two opposite political views, less than 15 miles apart on separate mountaintops. Looking to the north from La Cumbre Peak, you can see the Sierra Madre Mountains. Humphrey Bogart's treasure is still buried out there someplace. Forms a spectacular canyon called Gibraltar Canyon, almost as spectacular as the Grand Canyon. And down there at the bottom of the canyon, about 3,500 feet below us, is Gibraltar Lake, another one of the lakes that supplies Santa Barbara with its water. People standing up there are hang glider pilots. La Cumbre Peak is also the primo hang gliding capital of America. They come up here, set up their hang gliders, and then glide down 4,000 feet to the beach. They're checking the wind. It's a little warm up here today. It's about 90 degrees, so the lift isn't too much because it's cool down below, about 68. But they take off from that spot, leap off the cliff, and sail down between those rocks and Cathedral Peak and down into Santa Barbara itself. He's hooking himself up and he's getting ready to go over the side. Oh, again, there's not much lift today. He's testing his gear to make sure that he hangs free from the glider itself. One of the problems with hang gliding is, like you have problems with every sport, is that you got to walk your hang glider to the top of the peak itself, which isn't very far, maybe 100 feet. This man is the first man off today. They call a first man off the wind dummy because he's the one that tests the wind to see if there's enough lift. If there's no lift, he just goes right straight down the side of the mountain into Santa Barbara. If there is lift, he can climb up as high as 7,000 or 8,000, 9,000 feet. He's checking things. There he goes. He's got a little lift today. currents of air around the hill itself. Now, normally the best lift here is when it's warm down below and cold up here, because hot air rises. Today it's about 90 degrees up here and it's about 68 degrees down below. Get some lift off of Cathedral Peak. But he's not getting much, he's sinking a little bit. So he's got a little lift, he's going up. Turning out over the peak again, Cathedral Peak. Climbing. Imagine now he's climbed about 300 or 400 feet from this point of takeoff. Pull back, we can see how high he is up there. He's got wind. Turning. Still climbing. As a pilot, this has got to be one of the best ways in the world of flying. He's getting lift, so we know that there'll be other hang gliders going off. The second one is getting ready to take his leap. He's checking the wind on the little ribbons down below. See how the wind is? They would like to see that ribbon blowing straight out, which means they got a lot of lift. When it hangs slack, there's no lift whatsoever. It takes a lot of nerve to jump off one side of a mountain like this, especially with all those rocks below. These people aren't foolhardy. They want everything to be right. So they want the right wind, which is what he's waiting for right now. Now try to imagine you're a hang glider pilot standing up here, looking down at your feet, at the landing strip or takeoff strip you've got to go off of, then going right straight down that hill into the valley down below. And that's why they stand up here, spending so much time psyching themselves out. Okay, now he's going to take that step forward in the void over the rocks. Gets a little bit of lift, and he's on his way. Sinking though. But he's getting up. He's getting a little lift off Cathedral. But he's still sinking. He's not getting any lift at all. His buddy's right above him, sinking too, so the lift must be going down right now. At least it's not as good as it was a little while ago. This is one of those days when the wind dummy didn't prove anything. He went out, there was lift. The second man's out, no lift. Way, way off in the distance, you can see other hang gliders sinking down. They're coming from other spots in the mountain. That's the tip of Cathedral Peak right there. He's working it, but there is no lift. Well, it's all downhill from here, so they just go on down into Santa Barbara and land a little field down there by the waterworks. He's going to try to go between the peaks. There he came out. I lost him for a minute. That's Sally up there watching the hang gliders go down, down, down. Hang glider pilots have to watch out for a passing aircraft. Here's one flying just above our hang gliders. Sally just met some old friends of ours coming up the mountain as we were going down. We were going to have dinner with them tonight, but they've got a picnic. So maybe we'll have lunch up here. Who knows? Strange where you meet people.
Every event that occurs.
That's right. Nothing like coming up to the top of La Cumbre Peak and having smoked salmon and champagne just by accident.
So what do I do? Wave this or something?
No, just
Do house Sarah.
you're gonna see yourself on
Do
this.
house Sarah.
Hold the bottle out so we can see it there.
That's right. But to hide the label because it's not California.
I don't think there's any.
Cheers.
Hi, come hi, cheers.
You can tell she's an old hand.
She's getting a little thirsty because it's very dry up here and very hot.
They put on a show perfect for you.
That's right. This is the Ridgeline Road we're on right now. We're at an altitude of about 3,500 feet. Santa Barbara is to the right of us. Red Rock Canyon is to the left of us. The road itself is Camino Cielo, which means the road of the sky, which is a very apt name for this road. Biking is a big sport in California, and you see these people will ride all the way up the mountain on their bicycles. It's quite a climb. Of course, in California, everybody's got the right to bear arms like they do in the United States. So they set aside these little preserves up here where people can come up and practice their marksmanship so they can get proficient at killing their friends and their wives and their children. If you look up at the top of those rocks, you see another way that Santa Barbans entertain themselves: rock climbing. We're almost at the bottom of the hill now. Down there you can see Santa Barbara Harbor. The building you see right there is the monastery for the Santa Barbara Mission. That is the mission area of Santa Barbara, the back side of the hills. There's a waterworks down there. This is one of the residential areas of Santa Barbara back behind the mission. After living in Japan, you often get the feeling when you're driving through Santa Barbara that you're driving through the country. This is the Santa Barbara Mission. It was built by the Spanish in 1782. It had its 200th anniversary about 4 years ago. When Queen Elizabeth was here with Ronald Reagan back in 1983, it was pouring rain all the time until she came up the hill and she went in the front door of the mission. And the moment she went in the front door, the sun came out for about 2 minutes and then went back to pouring rain again. These are typical Santa Barbara type homes right near the mission. They've tried to make the whole town into a Spanish town. This is the Riviera section of Santa Barbara. They call it the Riviera because it's supposed to look like the French Riviera. And if you look over the side of the hill to the right, it does look like the Riviera. That's La Cumbre Peak up there, where we were just a few minutes ago. Now we're standing on the pier on the Santa Barbara Harbor. Those are the beaches, mostly tourist beaches. Santa Barbara people don't go to these beaches. These are where people from LA go. And they're the only beaches in Santa Barbara that get kind of crowded. This section of the pier over here is a brand new section they built last fall, and it's already burned down. They seem to have a lot of fires here. The whole pier at one time was owned by a movie actor named Ronald Colman, and it burned down in the late 1950s. They didn't really build it again until the 1970s. This is the Harbor Restaurant on the pier. It's a Sunday afternoon, so it's the busiest day of the week in Santa Barbara. It's when all tourists from Los Angeles come up here. This is the entrance to Santa Barbara Harbor. Some of the sailboats coming in from a race. The harbor itself is quite extensive. And above it is City College, where Sally used to teach. The office overlooked the harbor. Not a bad place to work. The old story about how owls keep birds away from roofs and things. Well, all over every single building that's built on the harbor in Santa Barbara, they have these owls, and it doesn't do a thing to keep the sea birds off the... In fact, there's a seagull sitting right on top of one of the owls. So don't believe what you hear. This is a seafood place out at the end of the pier. In the wintertime, when they're in season, you get gigantic lobsters here and crabs, all kinds of things. But they're not in season right now, so it's mostly fish. Santa Barbara from the seaside, looking from the Biltmore Hotel, back past the cemetery up on the hill there, Children's Zoo. And that's the Sheraton Hotel. Sheraton is where Ronald Reagan's men are all staying right now in the press corps. then we come back around towards downtown itself. And if we zoom back, you can see the mountains in the background above the harbor. This old parrot out in the pier has an interesting story. 2 years ago, some bums were coming by him, and the parrot said something the bums didn't like, and so they took him out of his cage and they beat him up, set him on fire, and threw him in a trash can. All the people around here saw that happen, and they chased the bums and left the parrot. The parrot disappeared. Nobody could figure out where it went. About 2 weeks later, some kids read about the parrot being missing in the paper and brought him back. It seems they saw the bums throw him in the wastebasket and brought him home. Buy an owl to put in a roof to keep the birds away, or get a wind chime. Got all kinds of junk. It's Hong Kong Harbor, but has its own picturesqueness. Sailboat race going on outside there. The buoy you see at the entrance of the harbor is usually occupied by about 6 seals. I haven't seen any on it today. This is the harbor itself. It's really surprising because it's mainly a pleasure boat harbor, and yet it's also a big fishing harbor. Most of the fish that you get in San Francisco are actually caught in Santa Barbara. It's probably one of the most beautiful harbors along the Pacific coast. But the fishermen here have really gotten fishing down to a science. In fact, they're so good, you can't find any sardines in the Pacific anymore. They've fished them all out. And now the anchovies are gone. And when the sardines and anchovies are gone, there's no sport fishing. So this will all be pleasure boats before long. You really get a good view of the pier from down here, and you can see how big it is. It's really quite extensive. Harbor Restaurant. This is the view Sally used to have of it from City College campus where I am now. Nobody up here now but the football players. City College redshirts for all the big California universities. It's a beautiful campus. In some ways, it's prettier than the University of California at Santa Barbara. In fact, it used to be the University of California campus until the university moved out to Goleta. Like everything else in Santa Barbara, there's a great deal of Spanish influence on the campus here. You can see it in the murals in some of the buildings. They almost remind you of the building you see at the campus of the University in Mexico City. Very modern architecture. And the football players. Good enough to play at the big-time schools like UCLA. They farm them out here for a couple of years and give them some real seasoning. There's Sally down there waiting for me to go on with our tour. These are homes along the beach, Henry's Beach. They have beaches of their own, but it's quite a climb down to the beach. We're driving through Hope Ranch now. Hope Ranch is a beautiful area of Santa Barbara. Some of the homes are so far back in, it takes you 5 minutes to drive back into them. And horses are big here. Almost every home has horses. And you can play golf in your front yard, which is kind of nice if you like to play golf. Hope Ranch, a lot of people think it was named after Bob Hope, but it was named after a local rancher who owned the land here. Just beyond Hope Ranch is another interesting piece of property. This is Mora Mesa. This open land is right in the heart of Santa Barbara. It's a huge piece of property. It was once owned by Columbia University, and they'd planned to build a campus out here. But then they sold it to an Arab, who in turn sold it to a man who wanted to develop a big hotel here. And it's been in litigation for about 10 years. One of the things that's so amazing about Mora Mesa isn't just the fact that it's 1,000 acres of undeveloped land right in the heart of Santa Barbara, but it's 1,000 acres of land over one of the most beautiful stretches of beaches in all of Santa Barbara. Hope Ranch Beach and Mora Mesa Beach. For as far as the eye can see, there's hardly a person, except an occasional bather. This beach is one of Santa Barbara's nude beaches. Clothing is optional on most Santa Barbara beaches. This is Santa Barbara's most spectacular beach, without a doubt. This is known as letting everything hang out. Start a helicopter going along beach watching. Santa Barbara's beaches are very uncrowded. There are over 24 miles of beaches in Santa Barbara. This beach is right in the heart of Santa Barbara, just about half a mile from downtown. You're never very far from the beach in Santa Barbara, and they're almost always as deserted as this. This is a Sunday afternoon in August, can you imagine? And nobody's on the beach at all. The land out here is known as Pelican Point. Santa Barbara, of course, has lots of surfing beaches, but this particular beach is kind of interesting because I'm looking down upon these surfers from Pelican Point, which is on a tip of land right off the University of California at Santa Barbara. In fact, that's the main campus back there. The University of California at Santa Barbara is a very interesting school. In fact, it's so interesting with all these beaches and things kids can do is that the average undergraduate goes here for 8 years instead of 4. They like it that much. This is the view looking west from Pelican Point. In the distance you can see the town of Isla Vista. Is where all the student protests began back in the 60s. I don't know if you remember it or not, but they burned the Bank of America here. And from here it moved up to the Berkeley campus, and from Berkeley down to Los Angeles, and then across the rest of the country. But the students here were the first to protest the Vietnam War. Across this little lagoon you can see the house that was built for the president of UCSB, Dr. Huttenbach. But Huttenbach and his wife didn't like being isolated on the campus with a bunch of students, so they made the university buy them a house in Santa Barbara itself. That should have been a good indication of the type of man Huttenbach was. He's just been fired for graft and corruption. Dormitories at UCSB are located along this stretch, which makes it a little hard for the students. If they want to go to the beach, they've got to walk across the street and go down this flight of stairs, which is almost 50 steps, before they can get to the beach itself. Notice that each dormitory has a volleyball net out in front of it. If UCSB excels at anything, it's turning out volleyball players. About the only students on the campus at the moment are these volleyball players. Almost every player on the U.S. Olympic team comes from UCSB, was trained here. Both the men's team and the women's team. Of course, the big-time players move indoors. This is the main campus mall. It's quite deserted now because all the students have gone home for the summer. But by the middle of September, it'll be filled with students again. Normally, there are about 30,000 students go to UCSB. It's really kind of an open-air campus. That's the history building up ahead of us there. Japanese graffiti. At least I think it's Japanese. I wonder if anybody back at the office can read this. What would a university be without a bell tower? Campus has got full of bicycle ways. You have to be careful where you walk on the campus because they have these bicycle freeways and you can get run over very easily. Here's what I mean about the bicycle freeways. You have to be really careful when you're walking along. Off in the distance you can see the Goleta Pier and Goleta Beach. This is Goleta Beach Park. It's about a mile from our house in Santa Barbara. In the background you can see the University of California campus and Pelican Point out to the left. beach is very, very crowded today, unusually crowded. But then again, of course, it is the end of August and it's kind of hot, so people are jamming to the beaches today. The Channel Islands, and if we pan over here to the left, you can see the Goleta Pier itself. This is mainly a fishing pier. Nobody seems to catch a heck of a lot, but they'll have a good time. They catch mackerel, some mullet, and occasionally a flounder. These are the white cliffs at Goleta Beach. And if you look in closely, right at the base of that water tower, that's the spot where the 5 iron cannons were found in 1981 that we think are from Sir Francis Drake's Golden Hind. If you look to the west of the cannon site, you can see where the cliff line breaks. This was the old entrance into Goleta Slough, which at one time was a big harbor. A sandbar has filled it up now. But there's the other cliffs on the other side by UCSB. Just to the west of the White Cliffs where the cannons were found is the entrance to Goleta Slough. Up until about 1864, this was a great bay. The Skeleton Island out there, all that's left of it now, used to block the view of the bay from the sea, so it was almost like a secret harbor. Anyway, today it's the site of Santa Barbara Airport. It's been all filled in except a few places. But up until 1864 or so, when it began to fill in, it was a great bay. And right down below us, by that oak tree, is where the Goleta anchor was found in 1892, about a mile from the site of the cannons. We think this is the spot that Sir Francis Drake careened his ship on his voyage around the world in 1579. We also think that the Golden Hind may be down there, buried in the mud, and then he went back to England in a Spanish ship, not the Golden Hind. If that's true, there's about 20 tons of treasure buried there, too. But so far, we can't get anybody interested in letting us go down there and mag the site or do any kind of an archaeological dig there. So it'll have to remain a mystery. It's Lane Air Terminal at Santa Barbara International Airport. Like everything else in Santa Barbara, it's just jam-packed to capacity. Would you believe the Shah of Iran is alive and well and living in Santa Barbara? Well, he is, and that's where he lives. That's his house on a hill high above Henry's Beach. His sister bought the property about 6 months before he died, and the compound was rushed to completion. Actually, the man who died in Egypt was not the Shah. In fact, nobody even died. It was just a dummy from the Hollywood Wax Museum that President Carter and President Nixon flew over for the funeral. Then the Shah was flown back here, and he's been up in this hill ever since. Views of Santa Barbara, the harbor, and the city itself down below it. That's beautiful downtown Santa Barbara. This is the courthouse in Santa Barbara. The original courthouse was destroyed by earthquake in 1925. When they decided to rebuild the city, they decided to make it into a Spanish town. And so the courthouse was made to look like a mansion or a palace in Seville. It's really one of America's most beautiful courthouses. Fiesta time, there's a big fiesta and dances are put on out here in the courtyard. As you can see, the walls are about 12 feet thick. That's meant to survive earthquakes. Downtown Santa Barbara, you'll find all these little plazas, again like a Spanish town. There, you can't see them from Main Street, but if you wander back off the Main Street, you'll find them. They're actually very nice places. Nice places to have lunch outdoors in the sun, winter or summer. Again, the Spanish influence is all over the place. Santa Barbara is a very casual town, as you can see. Where else in the world can you sit downtown in your bathing suit and watch the world go by? It's also a cultural city, art museums and botanical gardens, historical museums, museums of just about any kind. Hobson's of Santa Barbara is a big chain of ice cream stores in Tokyo. And Santa Barbara is just a little tiny dump as part of the Granada Theater. Santa Barbara is famous for its girls and its outdoor restaurants. I think I prefer the girls, but the restaurants are very, very nice. This one is known as the 1129 Club. We'll take you inside and let you look at the patio itself.
My name is Pat Montgomery, and I'll be here till 7 o'clock. But hold me tight. Save your goodbyes for the morning light. But don't let me say goodbye and say hello.
Not a bad way to spend a day. Nobody seems to work very hard in Santa Barbara, but they do have their libraries and the courthouse. And you can walk up to the house. This is our house in Santa Barbara. We had just packed up all the furniture. It's on its way into storage, and we're going back home to check it one last time and to take one last swim in the pool. They just shot off a MX rocket. That's the contrail that you can see above our house. They do this all the time from Vandenberg Air Force Base. We got a hold of some new swim fins in Santa Barbara. They're called Force Fins. We're going to try to market them in Japan for the designer, who's a Santa Barbara person. They're really quite an unusual design, and you don't get any foot cramps from them. They're very easy to swim with, and you get a lot of power. Sally is not very good at swimming with fins or scuba diving or snorkeling, but as you can see, they move her along quite well. They come in all kinds of colors. These are mine. They're quite a bit bigger. They're for scuba diving. But you notice the design. They look like flippers from a seal. Very flexible. Get a lot of power with them. Sally will try them once more. She's learning fast. Well, she can swim the length of the pool with about 4 kicks to show you how easy they go. Giving her advice all the way. Well, we've locked up the house and we're on our way back to Tokyo. It's a sad time for us, but we go from one home to another home. Home sweet home. It's going to be rented, and we'll see what it looks like when we get back. This is the Upton Hotel in Santa Barbara. It's where we spent the night on Friday night before going back to Tokyo. It's a bread and breakfast place. For $90, you can stay there in a little guest cottage, which are very well furnished, and have a free breakfast in the morning.
Looking back at where I've been, so much time has passed.
Thanks for the memory of candlelight and wine, castles on the Rhine, the pyramids and moments on the Congo River line. How lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of a rainy afternoon, swinging for the moon, motor trips, burning lips, burning steaks, Khartoum. How lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of sunburns at the shore, nights in Singapore. You might have been a headache, but you never were a bore. So thank you so much.
The memories you bring back are only as good as the pictures you take. Canon's computerized image processors make all the tough photographic decisions so you can concentrate on capturing more beautiful memories.
So thank you, Canon.